everyone, and welcome to day 3 of the Peplum Top Sew-a-Long. Today we are going to be sewing our shoulder seams and attaching your neckband or neck binding. Let's get started. The first thing you're going to do is you're going to take your back bodice piece and your front bodice piece and align the shoulder seams right sides together. Then you can pin or clip them into place and sew. Make sure when you are sewing that you remove your pins and clips along the way. If you are using a serger and you sew over a pin, this could break your blade, which is not good. After you've sewn your first shoulder seam, you can go ahead and sew the other side. And now your shoulder seams are together. If you are going to do a neck binding, at this point you will want to take your neck binding piece and sew the short sides right sides together. So. Then you will flip it right side out. Go ahead and grab your bodice. And now we're going to line it up and pin your neck binding piece to your bodice. First, you will need to find your center back. To do this, match your shoulder seams together. And wherever that center is, that's your center back. Place a pin there. Do the same thing for the center front. And then what you're going to do is you're going to match your center front and center back together as so, and find where your sides are. Your sides are not necessarily your shoulder seams. My side is just in front of my shoulder seam here. And you're going to pin that on both sides. Then you are going to quarter your neck binding. So that's pretty much doing the same thing that you just did on your bodice pieces, except with your neck binding. Just going to quarter it. If you'd like to make this a little bit easier, you can sixth your neckline on your bodice piece and sixth your binding piece. Now, we're going to match up the quarter points on our bodice piece and on our binding piece. You're going to start where your seam is from sewing your binding piece into a loop, and you're going to attach that right sides together to your back center spot that you marked on your neck binding piece. Pin into place here. Then we'll just go around and do this on the other sections. Remembering to stretch you're going to have to stretch the neck binding piece slightly as you attach. Stretching the binding piece while you're attaching helps the binding to lay nice and flat. Once you have your neck binding pinned right sides together to your neckline to your bodice piece, as so, you are going to stretch your binding piece slightly you're going to stretch your binding piece until it meets your bodice and go as you sew. So you're going to go around and sew along this raw edge here where the bodice edge and the neckline binding edge meet, raw edges meet, and you're going to just stretch your neck binding piece slightly so that it fits onto your bodice. For your neckline binding, once you have sewn all around your piece, your bodice piece, and attached your neckline binding piece to your bodice piece, we're pretending this is sewn here. I'm going to attach my neck using the other method. You are going to want to flip your neck binding piece up and flip it over to the other side. This will create a binding look like here, and you can just top stitch along this edge, your turned over edge. Then you'll most likely have some excess on the wrong side, which you can just trim off. If you will be sewing the neckband piece, you are going to get your neckband piece strip you cut out and sew the short ends together. Then you will fold it in half as such, and you are going to quarter your neckband piece. So what this means is on your seam, this is going to be your center back. Here you'll place a pin. Then from your center back, you will fold it in the place where the fold is. Right here will be your center front. Now we're going to match our center front and center back together like this and place a pin on each of the sides. These are our sides. All right. Now we are going to take our bodice piece and we are going to quarter it here. But for this, there's no little seam to where you will find your back piece. So you are going to match your shoulder seams together and fold it to the back. And that little spot in the middle there, that is your center back. Do the same thing. We're going to do the same thing for the front. So again, you'll match your side seams, your shoulder seams together, excuse me. The spot where you meet the fold is your center front. Now, for finding our sides on this, it's not always the shoulder seam. To find our sides, we're going to match the center front and center back pins or clips together, and whatever the side is, you'll mark that. As you can see, I'll show you. This is where I marked. That is obviously not the shoulder seam. So as you can see, it's not always the shoulder seam. And then we're going to do that on the other side. Now, we will take our neckband piece that we already have pinned and quartered, and we are going to pin it on. So first you're going to find where you marked your center back. Your center back is the height. You are going to pin together where your center back and your seam that you had pinned meet. Then you are going to do that on all of your other points that you marked. Now, you'll notice that you are going to have to stretch your band slightly to fit to meet. That is normal. Stretching your band helps for your neckband to lay flat once it is sewn on. Okay, so we're going to do that on all four. I'll show you again. Here's my front pin is hanging right there, and we're going to pin. Make sure when you're pinning that you're pinning your raw edge to your raw edge. See, like so. My raw edge on my band is meeting my raw edge here on my bodice. Now I'll just pin the last one into place. If you'd like, you can pin, to help you feel more secure, you can pin in eighths. So instead of just pinning 4 times, you'll add another pin in between those, about here. And you'll do that 4 more times. Now that we have our band pinned onto our bodice, we are going to sew it into place. When you are attaching your band to your bodice, make sure to also take the full seam allowance. This also helps for your band to lay flat and not also remember to only stretch your band when sewing. Do not stretch your bodice piece. This will create wrinkles around your bodice. Once you have your band sewn to your bodice here, you can flip up your band and press the seam allowance down. Once you have your neckband pressed down, you are done for today. We'll see you back tomorrow for day 4.